Okay, well, definitely in the interest of time, we'll get going. I know Kelsey has a lot to cover, so I'd just like to say hello and welcome to Sask small scale pig production webinar. I'm Lynn Reddle Huntington, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. This is the second in our spring series, and today's session will help you navigate the ins and the outs of feed, housing, pig health and biosecurity, behavior, transport and regulations. And the 1 hour session will also address how to avoid the most common mistakes and how to make a profit. So a couple of housekeeping issues today. We will be recording today's session, and the recording link will be shared at a later date via email. If you can't hear Dr. Gray, our speaker today, please make sure your computer audio is turned on, or you can join by phone. If you've got questions, you can use the chat, or you can raise the hand feature that is available at the bottom of your screen to participate. And if you're joining by phone, you can unmute yourself and ask questions at the end of the presentation, or you can email questions to info@saskpork.com. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Kelsey Gray. She graduated from the University of Calgary in 2017 and immediately began work at Prairie Livestock Veterinarians. Now, over the last few years, she's developed an interest in outdoor pig farming and working with smaller family farms. Kelsey also volunteers with the Calgary Stampede on the Pork Committee and advocates for agriculture awareness and education. So without further ado, I will pass things over to Kelsey so that we can get going.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me and for signing up today. There's kind of more of you than I was expecting. So I'm like, oh, hopefully it's a good presentation. I'm going to share my screen. And I'm getting used to the virtual presenting, but I typically love to interact with the people I'm presenting with. So I'll try to engage you guys as much as I can. And if you have questions that are burning at a time, just stop me and put like you said, a hand up or in the comments box, and we can go through stuff. I'm going to really try to keep on time today, but they invited me to talk about something I'm quite passionate about. So I'm like, how do I put all this into an hour? So if I'm rushing, tell me to slow down. And I've got a lot of slides with just pictures on them. So if it feels like we're moving quickly, it's probably just me trying to show material, but feel free to tell me to settle down if we need to. Yeah, so thank you for the introduction, Lynn. This is me with Kuni Kuni, and my company was formerly called Prairie Swine Health Services. We had to change because we now have a poultry team. Primarily, we actually work with a lot of commercial producers, so working in pretty large scale farming. But over the last couple of years, as Lynn mentioned, I've kind of been getting involved with some outdoor pigs. And something I'm learning is it's really difficult for you guys to find a vet. So I get a lot of calls, and I've been learning. I'm probably teaching as much as I'm learning. So I really like working with this group because you guys do things very differently from what I was trained in. And it's been something I've really enjoyed. So yeah, this is our team. It's not everybody, we're growing, but we're based out of Red Deer and Lethbridge, but we're kind of all over the place. And those are in Alberta. Sorry, I forget I'm talking to Saskatchewan. And I love Saskatchewan, and I love people from Saskatchewan. So I wish I could do this one in person. This looks like a really long outline, but I assure you we're going to go through it in a really broken down way, so it doesn't look as overwhelming as that. So I'm going to get right into it, and if there's any more questions, it's, as we go. So I thought I'd start with the less exciting stuff and go over just a couple comments on legislation around owning pigs. I didn't really get to see the poll, but it looked like a few of you guys already have pigs. I don't know if there's some people here who are just starting and don't have pigs yet, but I thought I would just cover this really quick. So I'm not going to get into it today because we don't really totally have time for that. But just in terms of getting pigs and even livestock in general, there's probably some acts and some governmental things like water regulation, like land ownership, manure disposal. So these are just some things you want to think about if you're brand new into this. you might have to check in with your government body, with an MP or with Saskatchewan Pork, just to make sure you're in line with any government regulations. But I'm not going to go into that into detail today, just something to keep in mind. One thing I will get into detail about on one particular act that's important is the Animal Protection Act. So this is basically the act that protects animals against abuse and neglect. And this one, once you own animals, you'll be responsible to uphold this act. And for just like the formalities of it, obviously you guys are probably passionate, you love animals, and this shouldn't be something, you know, I have to go over, but just in terms of what they actually like use as their regulating body for this is called the National Farm Animal Care Council, and they have a code of practice. So the act that is actually implemented by the government follows the guidelines that are written for pigs from this code of practice. So if you've never seen this before, you can find the copy online. For the most part, if you're outdoor farming, you're probably already meeting all of the protocols, but it's just something good to know that this is a resource and this is like the, I guess, governmental standard of care. A lot of it's tailored towards commercial production, but it's a good resource. So lastly, this act is enforced by the Animal Protection Services in Saskatchewan. We have a similar body in in Alberta, but this organization would be the ones that actually enforce it if there was ever an animal welfare complaint. So I won't overly emphasize that. I'm sure this isn't an issue for you guys, but just something to keep in mind. My point to wrap up about legislation is Saskatchewan Pork is going to be a great resource for you guys. So if you have any questions on, or am I doing things according to guidelines, just check in with Saskatchewan Pork and they'll be really helpful for you. Okay, I just see a quick question popping up. The same stuff applies in Manitoba. Yeah, thanks, Mark. So yeah, we have different kind of animal, I guess, there's a non-for-profit, like we have the SPCA in Alberta, you guys have Animal Protection Services in Saskatchewan, and then they're the ones that would overly enforce the guidelines and the governmental law. But yeah, check in with Saskatchewan Pork if you have any questions about that. So the next kind of more formality thing before we get into fun stuff is just going over premises identification and PigTRACE. So the premises identification number, if you already have animals or livestock, those of you in this group might already know about this. So this is basically a location ID, and it basically ties your livestock to a location. So it's a it's a land ID number, and you can get one online. It's really easy to do. So basically, this is kind of a step-by-step process to get on and get one, and they give you a number, kind of like what this in quotations number looks like, and that's the number that ties your animals to the location that they live on. So the reason this is important is, if you have emergencies and someone calls and you're like, I'm having a farm fire or something, they'll have your land ID number and they can get right to you. So it's an important thing to have. And even if you have horses, you need to have these as well. So you guys might already know about this. Now, the PID is general to any livestock animal that you have on your property, but PigTRACE is a separate thing, and some people don't know about this. So PigTRACE is a Canadian tracking program. So in Canada, because of our massive pork export market, we have a very strict program where we track movement of pigs, and that helps us control any possible emergency or foreign animal disease. And it allows us to know exactly where a pig has been in its life. So we can always trace back if we had a disease eruption, for example. So pigtrace.ca, also really easy to get registered. So basically PigTRACE is going to be a number that identifies your animals, and it will be tied to your premise identification number. So not all of your pigs need to have a tag in their ear. It can be dependent on if your animal is raised for market weight, if it's breeding stock, but all of that will be on the website and have the information for you. But the purpose of what I want to get across is when you buy animals, they should come with a basically a tracking document, and you'll say this pig came from this person's premise identification and they now live here. And if you sell a pig, it'd be the same process. So it's really important just to keep our national Canadian swine herd healthy and reputable. I don't know if you have any other comments specifically out of Saskatchewan pork, Lynn, but that's probably where I will leave that one alone. And again, just to reiterate why this is important, PID and PigTRACE, example one, farm emergency, farm fire, you call, they know exactly where your location is, and they know how many animals are registered if someone has to help find your animals. The other thing would be, if there's a really weird disease going on and we need to be able to trace back, okay, well, I brought a new pig in, well, where did that pig come from? And being able to look back and control disease from spreading. So that's why this is important.
Well said.
Yeah, and I'm just curious if, again, I kind of want to keep going because I got a long presentation, but I would be curious to know how many people are actually currently registered with PigTRACE, or how many people this is new information to. So maybe you guys could just make a comment in the comment section. Okay, so I'm going to move on. We got the important legislative stuff down. Now we can talk about fun stuff. So let's go over starting up with pigs. This is part I normally be a little more interactive, but it's virtual, so I'll make do. So when I think about starting up with pigs, I just say, let's, look at the basics. So this pig, I'm like, what do you guys think happened to this pig? Maybe the guy who's got the Lacombe pigs knows what this is all about. This pig is sunburned. So what happened here? We got a sunburn. So this reminds us, what do we need if we're starting up? We need shelters for pigs. We can't throw them out there and not have them protected from the environment. They need houses, they need windbreakers, they need protection. So what happened here? What does this look like? I'm sure someone who's got your heavily rooting pigs recognize this scene. This is pigs rooting and digging. So this reminds us when you're starting up, you need good fences, right? Pigs are difficult to keep in. For some of the people who have some tougher breeds in here, I'm sure they can attest that pigs are tough. So we need to think about good fencing when you're getting started off with pigs. And we're going to talk about all this in more detail. This is just to get our brains thinking. What's this? I'd be really curious if someone actually knows what that is. I didn't know about this. That's pigweed. So that's poisonous for pigs. So, understanding where you're housing your pigs, understanding your crops, understanding the environment that you're putting them in. We need to be prepared for that. What's wrong with this pig? Maybe some of you have seen this before. This is a sick animal. He's got erysipelas. So this is a reminder that, pigs need vaccines, pigs need medicine. So this is stuff that we want to get prepared before we get pigs. What's that thing out there? That's a wild pig. You have a lot of them in Saskatchewan, a lot of them. How do you get in there? And why is he in there with our pigs? These things can jump, they can dig, they can cross rivers, they are hardy. So we don't want to have wild pigs getting into your pig herd because they can spread disease. So again, fencing, fencing, fencing. What's going on here? I hate this picture. That's spilled feed. That's a great way to attract those wild pigs. That's a great way to attract pests. You need good feed storage. So if you have a shed of some sort or a place where you can have bagged feed away from rodents, away from attracting wildlife. These are the things we're thinking about getting started. This is me. What am I doing here? I'm vaccinating pigs. Again, you need some supplies. It's great to have a medical kit on hand. I can send you guys a list of stuff that I recommend having on site. It's tough for you guys to get a swine vet out. And for you guys that are really far away, the mileage might be prohibitive from you having someone come out to see you. So you probably have to do a lot of your own doctoring. So being prepared and having supplies can be really important. So with that, just kind of getting us thinking about stuff, I say for people, when you're getting started with pigs, and maybe you've already got them, that doesn't mean it's too late to start from the basics. I think it's really important to outline your goals. And I often tell vets who are working with pig producers to ask them what their goals are. Are you wanting to just have a couple pigs as sort of farm pets? Are you actually trying to make a profit here? Do you want to expand your herd? Are you working with the Kuni breed and you really want to get a good breeding program and get good breeding stock? Try to figure out your goal. And if you're brand new to pigs, my recommendation, and I've talked with Mark from Manitoba Pork about this, it's a really good idea to buy some weaned pigs, get like 2 or 3 pigs, get them at a weaned age and raise them to market and learn like that. I don't usually tell people to start with sows. Don't be getting a bred animal. Get a couple weaned pigs, bring them to market and see how you go. And then you can, tweak your plan a little bit. But I think it's good to sit down and figure out what you're trying to achieve. The next thing I recommend for people is do some research. There used to be no resources for you guys, but they're starting to become a lot more. Saskatchewan Pork has a book or a manual online. Canadian Pork Excellence is a great resource. Saskatchewan Pork will be really helpful for you guys. There's a lot of different things you can do. And also, connecting with people who already have pigs, those can be some of your best resources of all because they actually are doing it.
Kelsey, I'm just going to chime in for a moment too, and just say, in addition to the online version, Sask Pork also has a hard copy for people that may look for something a little different than the e-version. So you can reach out to Sask Pork for that as well.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Lynn. Another thing when you're getting started, like before you go get the pigs, what do they say? Horse before the cart. I don't know. Horse before the cart. Get ready. Get your place set up to have the pigs. So get your housing set up. Get your fencing good. Double check it. Make sure you're ready to have pigs. Is what you don't want to do is get them there and then go, oh crap, I don't really know how to house this thing or keep it in. So get your housing and fencing really solid. The other thing is, again, having supplies on hand. I would say one of the common things that happens is people call me and they kind of got pigs and then stuff started happening and they don't have a vet nearby, they don't have supplies, they don't know how to restrain the pig, and so they don't have anything. So having some equipment that we'll talk about today that's good to have on hand is really, really helpful for you, so that when, as you guys know with livestock, when something happens, it's not if, it is when, you'll be a little more prepared. And then thinking about a budget. So feed this year is insanely expensive. I feel bad for anyone feeding livestock this year. It's really pricey, but thinking about if you are trying to make money, or at the very least, you're not trying to lose money, thinking about your feed cost, how you're feeding pigs, what your plan is, if you want to butcher, if you plan to sell meat eventually. So just kind of getting a budget. There's a really good, resource, a guy from BC Pork that I worked on a project with. He made this amazing Excel sheet that you can basically input your input costs and output costs, whatever. And he has this great program that I can share with you guys if that would be helpful. He put a lot of time into it and it's actually pretty professionally done. So I can get that resource for you guys for sure. Okay, so that's a little just on an overview of starting up with pigs. Does anyone have any burning questions? Because now we're going to kind of start breaking down from being broad and we're going to get a little more narrow into details. Are we okay to keep moving on? Let me see if you chat here. Please send us an email. We're registered. Cool. Okay, so just PID. A couple people. I'd love a med kit list. Yeah, we'll get you guys that. I think that's a great idea. Okay, cool. So I'm going to move on again, like I said, to a little more specific stuff. So let's talk about buying pigs, because people go, okay, well, I got the housing now. How do I get a pig? So, oopsie, I'm putting this up. This is an example. I had a guy call me. He's really upset. He bought 2 pigs. And within a week, I think they both died. They got purple ears. They were super sick. He's like, what happened? And so, buying pigs where you don't really know the health status, you don't know if you're really buying a healthy animal. So thinking about that. Oopsie, someone goes, oh, great. I'm going to get a pig because he's going to be my live-in compost. I'm just going to feed him all my garbage. And it's a great way to be sustainable farming. Well, pigs aren't garbage cans. So we need a little bit more, focus on how we feed them. And we'll talk a lot about that today. The other, oopsie, got some pigs. and you didn't realize that they are the masters of escape, and now you've got pigs out and you can't house them. So, you know, again, this is just going back to being prepared before the pigs come. So where do we buy pigs from? Honestly, Facebook. There's some really good chat groups. You might have one in Saskatchewan that you guys are all a part of. Again, you can, with every time you're in a social media group, you're going to get the extreme opinions, and you might get a couple, you know, varying opinions, but I do see a lot of good conversation on here on how people can reach out and connect. Auction mart. Ooh, I don't love that. It's kind of a bit of a cesspool. We get a lot of mixing of animals. People do it. It is definitely an option, but just be cautious, especially if you are someone who is trying to build up, you know, your breeding herd, or you're trying to build up and you've maybe invested a little more into your farm and put a little more money into it and you're trying to expand. I would be very careful going to an auction mart. If you're going to get 2 weaned pigs and it's your first time trying this, yeah, that might be a more appropriate way. And then the other comment I just put on for here for buying pigs is, for those of you who might be contacting people in the US and say there's a genetic or something you want, importing pigs is not that straightforward. So if you are looking at buying it from overseas, there is a bit of a process involved. So just be prepared that there's paperwork, there's blood collection, there's veterinary fees. It's not as black and white as you might think it's going to be. So just an FYI if you're planning on buying across the border. Okay, so how do we buy pigs? So I find this one, again, when I see common mistakes for first-time pig owners, it's usually because the buying of pigs was just kind of like, you know, really random decision, and then they had some issues, and that really sucks. So I often think about the farm source. So if you are buying pigs for the very first time, this isn't going to be, you know, a huge deal if you're buying 2 pigs from someone and that's your source. But if you have an established pig farm and you bring in pigs from somewhere totally different, pigs can sometimes carry different bugs to each other, and that can cause a little bit of upset in your farm. So understanding where you're getting your pigs from. The other thing is, again, the farm reputation. So, and you can kind of see on those Facebook groups, you know, if someone's someone who's constantly selling maybe not great pigs, that person kind of, you know, you can wreck your reputation like that. So finding out, yeah, I bought from this person and their pigs were great, the genetic was great, they had good feet, you know, asking people around who they've bought from can be really helpful. Health. You know, people often don't ask the age and stage, like, how old is this animal? Is it a bred animal? Is it not bred? What's the health history? Do they have problems? Have they had any vaccines, dewormer? This is stuff that we want to know before you buy them. I put a little picture up here as my reminder to tell people who are maybe thinking they want a teacup pig. Not all teacup pigs are actually teacup pigs. I see it sometimes people buy, they want a pet and it's a piglet, and then it turns into a massive pig. So just be careful of understanding actually what you're buying. Animal introduction. So, you know, when you are bringing in new animals, thinking about introducing for behavioral and also for health reasons. And then lastly, planning your transport. So 1, making sure you're meeting transport regulations. 2, making sure it's good biosecurity. So again, if you have a farm you've invested a little more into, you're making breeding stock, yeah, maybe be careful about whose trailer comes onto your yard, right? Because they could be bringing bugs with them and bring them right to your farm. So thinking about the transport as well. Okay, so that's sort of thinking about pigs, planning pigs, ready to buy them. Now let's actually get into having pigs. So, sorry, I'm going pretty quick. If I'm speeding off, someone pull the reins back. Okay, some basics. So I asked a couple of people what kind of pigs they have, and I think all 4 of these breeds got brought up. Normally I go through a section on different breeds that we can talk about. I'm not going to do that today because of time, but definitely good to ask people about the breeds to meet your goals and your capabilities. Some breeds are a little tougher to fence. Some breeds are a little hardier pig, maybe a little more of a tougher pig. So thinking about that when you get going. Basic lingo. I don't know what everybody's experience is so far. So I always just start from assuming people don't know much, and we'll just go from there so that everyone can be on the same playing field. So a piglet, this is a nursing piglet. People often will call small pigs piglets. Piglet is actually nursing. Once it's off the teat, it's a weaner. This is up to about 20 kg, breed dependent. Grower finisher pig is in its final phases of going to market, and a hog, it's when it's ready made. Gilt, this is your unbred female. This is like a heifer in the cow world. A barrow is your castrated male. Your sow is your pregnant or mature female, and your boar is your intact breeding male. So just the cycle, a little bit of pig flow. We have breeding. Gestation in a sow is 116 days, roughly 3 months, 3 weeks, 3 days. Farrow, pigs get weaned, they grow up. From the animals that are growing up, they might go to market, or you might keep those females or males and have them put back into your breeding cycle. So this is just kind of a general idea of pig flow and pig production. Okay, so let's talk about normal pig behavior, and then we're gonna talk about abnormal. When I was in vet school, they spend year 1 is all normal. We just learn normal, and then second year you learn abnormal. And so for you guys new to pigs, maybe you're not new, but if you are new, the best thing to do is really understand what is normal in your farm, what is normal for your pigs, and that's gonna make it that much easier to detect when something is not right. So let's go over some normal pig behavior. Vocalization. Grunting and a barking sound, these are normal. Squealing when pigs are playing or arguing with each other, this is normal. Pigs are so loud, they can be deafening. If you've got to handle them, you might want to be wearing earplugs. What do I have here? A little video. This is a boar. He's trying to flirt here. These are all normal pig chit chatter.
It's not going to be good for you. How's that going, Huxley?
She wasn't having him too much. Okay, lying behavior. So, these are things that are just day-to-day things for pigs. Most pigs are going to sleep together. Separated pigs off on their own are more dominant. They'll have their legs stretched out, and this can be weather dependent on how they're going to lie down. Pigs should be getting up and down throughout the day. A pig who's lying there all day, unless it's a really hot day and it's a really fat pig, we should get pigs up every day to make sure they're moving around okay. Look at these nice pigs on a hot day. They're smart. They found the shade. They're pretty happy there. Pigs getting up. Most pigs are going to get up when they're greeted. They should stand up without struggle. They should not be squealing, high pitched, in pain. Younger pigs are definitely going to be more curious, more skittish. They're going to be running around when you're in there. And older pigs are certainly going to be a little more sluggish, and they might need a little more coaxing to get up. If they're really used to you and they're lazy, they might need you to come over and say, hey, time to get your butt up. Here's a video of some pigs just getting off the truck, and they're all moving around fine. They're curious. They're all walking easy. No one's squealing. No one's having any discomfort. Defecating, urinating. Pigs are actually pretty clean animals, so it's really common that they'll find a dunging area and that's where they crap, and they don't seem to move around from that. So sometimes if you see, random splatters like loose diarrhea, that might be a pig that is having diarrhea and it can't make it to where it would normally go. So that can maybe alert you that something's not right. They'll usually pick away from their feeder, and they'll usually pick at a place that's not nice to sleep, a wet area, drafty area. That's probably where they'll choose to have that section. They'll get up and down multiple times a day and do their business. And normal fecal consistency can be very feed dependent, but we just don't want to be seeing really loose diarrhea. That can be a concern. Exercise in pigs, they'll get up and down throughout the day. Again, younger pigs are a little more active, heavier pigs are lazier. This is a cute video I only have on for cuteness. Compliments of my client and friend, Tara. These are her Coonshan pigs. She bred Cooney Coonies to Mayshans, and they were very, very cute. Oops. Playing behavior. Pigs are very playful animals. They love to explore their environment. They are going to chew on everything, and they do play quite aggressively with one another. So, especially younger pigs, They might get some teeth marks on each other. Their play is pretty rough, but they shouldn't be truly injuring each other. Here's some more pigs curious about my pants, walking through, and I think I had boot covers on, and those didn't last very long. They ripped them to shreds. Very normal pig behavior. Eating, pigs, you know, when they say eats like a pig, that's true. They love eating. That's something that they should be happy to do every day. If you have, you know, feed access 24/7, they should be up and at it multiple times a day. If you've got, you know, select feeding times, they should definitely be curious to get there. Pigs who are not eating, that is not normal. Drinking, pigs will drink about 10% of their body weight per day. This will be weather dependent as well. They might play with water, especially if it's hot, it helps them cool off. Make sure you have water access 24/7. I think I get to it in the housing area, or the housing discussion, but pigs don't sweat, they can't. And so it's really important that they can cool off with, you know, drinking water and wallowing in water. Okay, so that's normal. Again, I'm moving kind of quick because I got a lot to cover. I'm going to talk about abnormal now. So I just mentioned to Lynn, for those of you that already have pigs and if, you know, going through health challenges and what to do with diseases is interesting, we could always look at doing like another session where we focus more on just pig health and what to do in scenarios. But I didn't want to, if I get into the veterinary stuff, then you really can't shut me up. So I figured I'd maybe get most of that on for an additional session if that's of interest for anybody. So let's talk about some strange behavior in pig that should alert you that something's not right. Because again, you might not always be able to get a vet out for you guys, so you might often be the doctor. And even still, you're going to be the first one who needs to know you got to call the vet. So vocalization, really, really high pitched screaming. Like you can usually tell the difference in a happy screaming pig and a sad screaming pig. That's not normal. Respiratory changes, honking, cough, rasping, cough, sneezing in pigs, not normal. Lying behavior, when pigs are too cold, they'll often pile onto each other. They'll lay near walls and they won't want to get up. They're too cold. And, you know, for pigs that are too hot, pigs open mouth breathing, that's not normal. They are too hot, and that can be, pigs getting too hot can be enough for them to die. So that's a serious thing. Pigs who won't get up, if they're, and pigs are usually pretty clever. Like if there is a spot to wallow, they'll lie there in the hot day. But just being aware, pigs who are, you know, really restless and don't want to move, that could be indicating we need some shelter for them. We might need to hose them off.
And then
These guys were happy cooling off. Pigs getting up. So again, every day you go through your pigs, you should be walking through, checking them out, making sure they get up every day. Pigs vocalizing a lot. If they're shaking when they're trying to stand, these are not normal. Or pigs that are an absolute refusal to get up and really struggling, that can be an indicator something's wrong. If you notice a pig, it's harder if you've got Berkshires or dark pigs, but if you've got pale skinned pigs, if you notice that they're like really, really, really red on one side, that could be an indicator that maybe they haven't gotten up in a while, or if they're really red somewhere, maybe that's a pressure point where they just haven't been able to move. So keep an eye out for some of those things. Defecating, urinating, again, if you see splashes of diarrhea that they're not making it to their dunging area, that can be an idea that something's off. Bloody diarrhea is never normal. So if that happens, time to call the vet. Not urinating, and I bring this one up because a thing I see, and I never see this in commercial pigs, but I've seen it a few times in outdoor pigs, is bladder stones. And I've actually seen a really sad situation where they had this potbelly pig. He was really sweet, and he ended up having a bladder rupture. They were trying to get someone to look at him, and they couldn't figure out what was up with the pig, but he did get a urethral stone, and that happens more commonly in outdoor pigs as opposed to commercial farming, usually because of the way the pigs are being fed. They have a mineral imbalance, and so it allows calcium and other things to build up stones in the bladder. So pigs not peeing can be an emergency. That, not good, not normal. Call the vet if you see that. Exercise, if pigs are the loner pig who's just not wanting to do anything. Pigs are out playing and there's that one pig off by himself. Check on that guy. Often I say, who's different? Pigs are herd animals, right? So the pig that's being different, keep an eye out for that. Again, pigs play rough, but if there is a sick pig, they'll often attack him. So if you see a pig who's really getting picked on a lot, bitten at, attacked, that might be something going on with him, because pigs will often pick on weakness and they can smell sickness. Eating, if you have, this is probably like, if there's anything you remember from this section, oh, I need to plug my computer in. If there's anything you remember from this section, pig not eating is not normal. That's probably like the first and clearest indicator that something is wrong, is your pig doesn't want to eat. So if that's going on, even that pig I had with the ruptured bladder, his first thing was he wasn't wanting to eat. So that should alert you for sure. One pig not eating could be a sick pig. Multiple pigs not eating, you might have a feed problem. Drinking, again, a lack of water on a hot day can kill a pig. So always make sure you have water access. And we'll talk about water a little bit later. I'm just trying to keep myself on track. Okay, so that was sort of normal, abnormal, and I realize I'm dumping a lot of information on you guys. So if that's too much, I can skip this section on sick pigs. How are we feeling, everybody?
It's quiet on the chat, Kelsey. We'll let you keep going for now.
I'm going to keep going. Yeah, this is, again, if we want to later look at maybe having an advanced section on sick pigs and treatment, we can definitely do that. All I'm going to go through on this section is just show you some of the common stuff I see in outdoor pigs so that you can have your minds prepared for that. Okay, so sick pigs, common stuff I see. Piglet scours. So some of you might not be dealing with piglets yet. And as I mentioned in the beginning, I recommend, raise your weaned pigs to finish before you think about sows and piglets. But sows and piglets can be a lot of fun too. But piglet scours is definitely something we can see. Cold piglets can scour, sick piglets can scour. So this is something that, and if piglets are scouring, you got to act quick, because a scouring piglet can be a dead piglet pretty quick. Parasites. Here's my other take home point. If there's something you remember today, deworm your pigs. If there's like one thing I tell people for outdoor production to do, is just make sure you do dewormer. That tapeworm, or that internal roundworm, really nasty. I've seen those in the barn and they just give me the heebie-jeebies. Really gross. This liver, why it's white like that, is the parasite's life cycle is it actually travels through the liver. So it's a thing called white spot liver. So if you're butchering pigs, talk to your butcher. They're really knowledgeable. And if they go, yeah, you had a lot of liver lesions, say, oh, what do you mean by that? If you're having a lot of liver lesions, you might need to start deworming your pigs once more before slaughter. So that could be an indicator that you've got some parasite issues. This is another one I get called about a lot. My pig has an ear infection. The pig's walking around with their heads tilted. They probably have actually mites. They don't usually get like a bacterial infection, and they get dry, itchy skin. Again, a lot of dewormers will, not all of them, but some dewormers will cover the mite problem, but this is something I get called about a lot on outdoor pigs. So dewormer, dewormer, dewormer. This is honestly, in the summertime, we're heading up. I guarantee I'm going to get 5 phone calls this summer about this. They go, my pig is doing the weirdest thing. He walks and he like moves his back like this. I don't have a good video of it. They call it dippity pig. And he walks and he keeps flexing his back like that. He wants to get away. Pink pigs, light pigs, they'll get sunburnt and then their skin's all tight and they're just like trying to move away from it. You won't see that with your Berkshires, Tamworth, but for anyone that's got pink pigs, it is common that they get sunburnt in the summertime. If you had a really badly sunburnt pig, you could, give them an anti-inflammatory, kind of like something we want if we got a sunburn. Another common, this one is another one I get called about a lot in the spring. This disease is caused by a bacteria, and we, in the vet world, we're super creative. We call it diamond skin disease because it looks like diamonds on the skin. This bacteria is soil borne. So sometimes into the spring, and it's everywhere. So it's not a, it's a ubiquitous bacteria. So it's not like your farm is gross because you have it or someone's not. Nope, it's a bacteria that lives in soil. In the springtime, it starts to melt outside and pigs start rooting and they're playing and they're turning up the soil. So sometimes I either get this pig that's starting to get the skin lesions, or the other presentation I get with this is acute lameness. All of a sudden the pigs are walking on their shoulders and they're really sore. So this is something that looks terrible, but it's really responsive to penicillin, which is great. So I often feel like a really smart vet when someone calls, I go, I know what it is, and I tell them what to give, and the pig miraculously gets better. This is also something you can vaccinate for. Again, I'm open to questions at the end, but we can talk about that if people would like to. Really common thing I see in spring. You've got pigs, might be a good idea to vaccinate for this. Anemia, I actually don't really commonly see this, but I bring it up because iron supplementation in piglets is a good idea to do. I will come back to that if there's questions, but it is common for newborn piglets to get an iron supplement before they're 10 days of age, ideally a little younger. Mostly because even for outdoor producers, many people will still farrow indoors and their pigs don't have access to soil where they would naturally be exposed to iron. Even when they are exposed to soil, it's one of the cheapest things you can do. It's really cheap insurance. So that's why I put this slide in. This is common, very breed specific. I think someone, Leanne mentioned you've got coonies. Some breeds are a little more prone to getting obese, and so managing their feed can be important. I see a lot of this as well. Lameness, I'll get people call me for pigs that have a swollen joint, maybe an injury. Really playful pigs, kind of like your dogs, and just like us, they can tear their ACLs too, but we can see lameness develop. This is a big one I see, especially for certain breeds again, breeds that are more prone to being overweight, overgrown hooves. I do have a teaching video somewhere on hoof trimming. I happen to have a very, very well-behaved pig for my demonstration, but hoof trimming, if you have pigs at a young age, I would say this is a great skill to learn for yourself because it'll save you vet fee and it will definitely help with your pig's ambulation and just general welfare. So I would definitely recommend learning to trim hooves, and I can share that video with you guys for sure. If you don't know how to do it or you don't want to, you can get a vet out. Even a pig vet who's not really comfortable with pigs should know how to do hoof trimming. Sepsis, not super common, but people are really sad when this happens because, you know, maybe they bought a couple pigs and then 2 of them die, and pigs will be like, when they get septic, they'll look perfect on Monday morning, and by Monday night, they might drop dead. It happens really quickly. This is usually from a bacterial issue. Hard to say if it's preventable, but something when a pig is starting to get sick, you can treat. And that's why, again, having medication on hand can be important, because when pigs go downhill, they go downhill really fast. Tusks for big pigs. Sometimes I see the older guys when their tusks start growing into their cheek and they get kind of cranky. So tusk trimming for older mature animals is a good idea for their welfare and also for your safety as well. And then older pigs, arthritis and lameness. And we can see this in older pigs. So when you get an older pig, maybe we have to do some pain management, kind of like you do for your old arthritic dog. Okay, so those were some of the common issues. And then I have to do my quick spiel on alarm bell issues. So I call these alarm bells because owning pigs, we are all part of the Canadian pig herd. And even if exporting meat has nothing to do with your personal life, it has a lot to do with Canada's well-being. So, you know, when we have pigs, we have to think about if it takes one pig that has a foreign animal disease, it can be catastrophic for Canada. So we all want to make sure that we're astute and that we have a good eye and just a head on us to go, something's not right. I think I'm going to call a vet out, and just having some of those signals in your mind. So I don't know if the concept of a foreign animal disease rings a bell for you guys, but basically a foreign animal disease is a disease that is foreign to here. So it's something that is elsewhere, and they're generally trade restrictive. So there's one disease maybe you guys have recalled in the past, one disease called foot and mouth disease. And you've potentially heard about the foot and mouth disease break of the UK. Tons of animals were disposed of, depopulated, kind of shut down their agricultural industry for a while. Very, very devastating. So some of these diseases are things that we absolutely do not want in Canada. And that's why when you cross the border at the customs check, when it asks, do you have a farm and are you going to visit a farm? It's because they want to make sure you aren't going to go, you know, you're not traveling to Africa and you're going to go to some, you know, farmer's place to explore rural community farming and walk back and bring that disease home. So if you ever get pigs with ulcers, vesicles on their nose, on their udder, on their feet, if you see something weird, sloughing, looks like blisters, immediately call the veterinarian. I've never seen this before. This was a client of mine. These were feet that we were looking at. It was a really strange case. It obviously wasn't a foreign animal disease, but he had some weird lesions for me. So we investigated that case. Sores, alarm bell. Okay, just put a little tag in your mind. So hopefully you'll never see one, but if you do, maybe you'll remember me blabbing to you about this. Another one that's really prominent and scary for the Canadian and North American swine industry right now is called African swine fever. This erupted through China in the last couple of years and killed off about 50% of China's pig population, which was essentially 15% of the world's protein. Really bad disease. So I tell people, if you have multiple dead pigs, you see sudden death, that's not normal. Sometimes, you know, when we have livestock, we have dead stock. You might get the odd dead animal if you have, you know, a big herd. But if you come out one day and you've got 2 dead pigs sitting there, that's not normal, especially for, you know, it's all relative on herd size, but you call the veterinarian. Okay, so that's my spiel on foreign animal disease. I think I have another spiel, but I'm being mindful of time. So I just wanted to have that in your brain so that we can all be astute pig farmers who are aware of when things are not good, what to do. So everyone's okay? I'm rushing through here. Talk about pig handling. Please let me know if we need a break. How often deworming? We'll come back to some of these questions here. Common length of time. Okay. So let's go over pig handling. So this is one of my favorite quotes about moving livestock. If you have no time, and same with working with horses. If you have no time, it'll take all day. If you have all day, it'll take no time. Rushing animals never goes well. No offense to the guys out there, but I find females are excellent stockmen when it comes to moving animals because they have softer voices. They're usually a little calmer and they just move slower. So I always watch people who are calm and don't rush. Things work amazing for you. So I might skip this slide. It's a little long. There's just some things about pig movement. I can send you guys this list after. Just talking about with pigs, some of their natural behaviors and how to work with them. So pig handling tools. If there's one tool you should get a hog board. They're really, I mean, yeah, you could use a plywood, but these are great because they've got handles and they're light. This is just a way to guide pigs. And I've got a couple of videos showing me working with them, but it creates a physical and a visual barrier. So you can basically guide the pig where you want them to go because they can't see on the one side and they'll just follow along. These things are amazing. You should get a pig board. Rattle paddles, these are just nice ways to kind of, I mean, for you guys who your pigs are like pets, I think the best way to move them is honestly get a little grain bucket. That's probably the easiest way. But these are just some other tools we can use to kind of steer animals if we're moving a flock of them or a herd of them. Similar to the pig board, if you don't have one of those available. I like the board because pigs are tough, but if you just want to move pigs with a visual instrument, using a tarp or something would work great. Hog snare. This is more if you had to do a noxious procedure. So you need to actually physically restrain the animal for your safety. For example, you got a septic pig with purple ears and you phone me and I'm telling you you need to give the pig an injection of something, maybe you need to restrain the animal. This wouldn't be the ideal way, but it's something that if you have to do, I'm taking blood in this picture. So something like that, this is a really, really useful tool. It basically goes behind the pig's canines and immediately they're going to back up. They just want to get away from it. And it gives you nice access to for blood collection and really good control of the head. A squeeze really would be only if you have a lot of animals and you're regularly processing them. I've only had one client that has this. Sedation, low stress handling. You've got some really nervous pigs. You got to do hoof trimming, call the vet out. Sedation, you would need either a vet prescription for certain products, and some products a vet can't leave on farm. So depending what needs to be done, sedation can work. It just might need to be having a vet out. And lastly, flipping the pig can be a really great way to get access to pigs. I just tell people to be careful flipping pigs who are obese. See this question. Oh, thank you, Mark. Yes, when you're restraining pigs, use earplugs. They're deafening. I never collect blood from pigs without wearing earplugs. Even picking up baby piglets for giving iron injections, like earplugs for sure. Okay, so, oh, and then lastly, of course, just being calm, using a quiet voice and let the pigs, give them a second. I sometimes see people, they're trying to move pigs and I'm like, the pig is 100 kgs. It doesn't have a neck. So when you're yelling at it, now it needs to like turn around to look at you and figure out who's screaming behind them. So just give them a second and let them see the open space. And usually once one will go, again, they're herd animals, the rest will go. This is again, same video, just them. This guy was unloading pigs off a truck and I was really happy with him just letting them take their time. And they were all moving happily, sniffing away. So that worked really well. Okay, getting into housing and feeding. I'm being mindful of time. I'm probably going to go a little over the hour mark. I apologize. If you guys need to jump off, this will be recorded so someone can share it if this is, if we're cutting into time. Solid size. Yes, thank you. Solid size, minimize distractions, absolutely. Okay, let's go over housing pigs. So here's a couple of pictures I have. There's many ways to do it. Some people very rarely would have a fully indoors barn. That's more commonly for farrowing sows. They might have a partial indoor outdoor. I love this access. This is always a great setup to have indoor access for shelter. And then some people will have fully outdoors. These all work fine. Fencing, as I went over a couple times today. Big things with fencing is having double, and this can be breed specific. So for example, a cooney pig is going to be a little, they don't root as much. They'll be a little easier to house. If you've got some Berkshires or some Tamworth, they're going to be a little tougher. So fencing high and also deep. So always fencing, you got to be going, a foot below ground because pigs are going to dig. There's a lot of different types of product you can use. And what I would recommend is talk to someone who's got them and say, hey, what did you use? Does this work well? Page wire is really good and hog panels are really good. Electric fencing, I just tell people don't get overly confident with that, because if pigs want to get on the other side and they realize how the electric fence works, they'll just go with it. They'll go, okay, I'm going to put my head down, and they'll run right through the electric fence. It's a nice perimeter fencing to have. It helps keep wildlife away, but I wouldn't use it alone. I'd maybe have it as a perimeter fence. This farm in this particular picture has, they raise wild boar. They're constantly fixing their fences. I've seen them with barbed wire perimeter, this and electric, and pigs get out. So these are some pictures of excellent fencing. The page wire is great. The fences are deep. This is another one I saw out in BC. I loved it. They had big rock beds at the base for digging. Really sturdy wire. They're excellent. Nope, these are crap. I just took these pics. I don't even know where these were from. I just had pictures of bad fencing, but pigs are going to find, if you've got a hole in your fence, they're going to find it. So check your fencing often. Shelters for pigs. Saskatchewan, whew, you guys have some cold winters. We get Chinooks out in Alberta. So you guys know how cold it can be. Definitely need to have good shelters for pigs, proper bedding. And again, we went over, this is for weather extremes. For the sun, we need protection, and we need protection from the heat. And we also need protection from those really cold winters. These are a couple examples I've seen, the semi-indoor outdoor access. This is another one, the sow, they had some extra heat lamps for piglets. Love that. Bedding and wallowing. I mentioned before, pigs don't sweat. So in a hot summer day, some kind of pool or some kind of mud dugout that they can cool off in is can be life-saving actually. Post boards and pallets are great for Berks. Thank you, William. And again, like get ideas from each other, because you guys are the ones doing it. So if someone's mentioning stuff, take notes here, because that's a great way to learn. Okay. Again, lots of bedding for these sows in the winter. This pig's wallowing in a mud pit. That's perfect. This isn't a windbreaker. You know, if you're in a really windy area, even if it's not a full-blown roof shelter, but a cover like that for shade and wind, perfect. Gross, right? We don't need to have bedding that gets dirty. We don't need to have gross pools of manure and urine. That's nasty. Mostly for sows and piglets. If you are into the farrowing world, I always say chilling is killing. If you get a cold piglet, it can die really quickly. So extra heat can be really important for piglets. Notice how excellently the person has the cords out of the way. Pigs love chewing on stuff. So if you have cables lying around, they're going to get destroyed and be a potential fire hazard. Again, light bulbs. I go to a couple barns and I just get scared. I get goosebumps when I see some of these old light bulbs and old cables and the old, you know, wood stuff hanging. I'm like, this is a fire hazard waiting to happen. Just be careful of that stuff and definitely watch for piglets and pigs chewing on stuff. In our experience, electric. Okay, someone just commented in here, Ben, thank you. He says, in our experience, electric works fine, but they need an adequate habitat and have their needs well met. Yes, totally. So that's what, again, if there's something on the other side they want, then they're gonna go get it. But if you can use electric and they've got good food, shelter, water, they like the pigs that they're in the pen with, and that's great. Okay, hospital pens. This is just the idea. Again, if you own animals, you're probably going to get a sick one at some point. So just thinking about where you can put a pig off by itself and maybe give it access to feed and water without competition or being harmed. You know, a little extra TLC. What we don't want is to have a sick pig who's just getting picked on, can't get to food. Regarding housing pigs, pigs are really social. So they definitely need companionship. Not necessarily a pig. A lot of pigs can get along with other species, but they are social. And then I just made a comment on caution when you bring a new pig to an established group. Pigs are very dominant in how they set up their hierarchy. And so if you throw a new pig in without having at least some fence line interaction, that pig can often get kind of beat up. So just be mindful on how you interact. Kind of if you're introducing new horses, similar thing, you wouldn't want to just throw a horse in there without having a bit of a greeting. Fence line contact, that's great. Throwing the new poor pig into the group, oh, he's going to get bullied. That's not really good. Okay, feeding pigs. I'm going to go through this. Were there any specific questions on housing pigs that anyone wants to go over? Again, if we want to do a follow-up session with some more detailed stuff, we can, but just let me know if there's any specific questions there. Okay.
Kelsey, just a quick thing, just because you're talking about introducing pigs, what about like quarantine?
Yes. Okay. I didn't know how far I should go down that rabbit hole. So quarantining pigs can be a really good idea for maintaining health status. So again, it kind of depends on where you're at. I had one client last year and they were raising, I can't remember what breed, but their ultimate goal was to continue raising breeding stock and they want to close their herd. Having a closed herd means you're not bringing any more incoming animals in because you're internally just raising pigs. So I said to them, they were going to buy something. And I said, if you're going to buy this pig, I'm like, I would absolutely quarantine it and do disease surveillance. Because if your goal is to close your herd and raise breeding stock, the last thing you want to be doing is walking in a disease to your herd. That's going to be, causing you reproductive problems and health issues. So it's definitely not a bad idea when you're a little more established and you want to bring new pigs in to quarantine, and you can do disease surveillance, bring a vet out to match health statuses. That's getting a little more intricate, but I think again, when we go back to the beginning of my presentation outlining your goals, it is a good idea for sure. And if before we even get to that point, if that feels a little advanced for you, at the very least, safe sourcing your pigs is definitely a good idea, and talking to someone about where they're buying their pigs. And ideally, if you like the person you're buying from, keep buying from them. Like, that's the best thing ever. If you can single source, that's the best thing you can do for establishing a healthy herd. Thanks, Mark. Be curious to know if any of you have done any quarantining. I have one client, she's pretty dedicated to the Kuni breed, and she quarantines everything she brings in, and we do disease surveillance and release it upon an approved health status. Okay, I'm gonna see the chat here. In our experience, yes, always. That's great. Yeah, I'm honestly, I'm really impressed that people are doing that. It is, if I was gonna do gold standard, quarantining is the way to go if it's possible. Okay, so feeding your pigs. Let's talk about this a little bit. Normally, I go into this and I have a soapbox for a while. I'll try to make this kind of quick, but I don't want to downplay the importance of it when I go through it quickly. If there is, the only thing you take home from today, it's about not feeding meat scraps or garbage to pigs. And I'm going to outline what that means, because I know people can see things a little differently in terms of what, like food waste. But meat scraps or, your garbage that's been touching meat scraps, do not feed that to pigs. Going back to the foreign animal disease topic, that is how they brought foot and mouth disease to the UK. Even if you go, well, I mean, I'm not exporting pigs, how does it affect me? It affects everybody, and it's a big deal. Foreign animal diseases can result in massive job loss, massive animal depopulation. You could have to say goodbye to your own pig you love. The mental health implications are colossal over this. I've talked to farmers that have had to depopulate a herd before, and they've never been the same ever again. So meat, people go, well, what if it's frozen? Doesn't that kill viruses? Not African swine fever. Even certain cooking of meat doesn't kill all amounts of African swine fever. Curing meat doesn't kill it. So I just say meat is just an absolute no. We just do not feed meat to pigs. We also, again, in Saskatchewan, you guys have a lot of wild pigs. So if something ever erupted outdoors there, it would just be gone like wildfire with those wild pigs. So that's my important message of the day. And again, we're going to come back to homemade diets, but I just really want to emphasize the importance of that, and about just all of us just being responsible together. It's not saying, oh, this person does this. And even I work with some commercial barns, they don't even allow staff to bring pork in. Like, they can't even have that for lunch. So it's kind of we all work at this together because it's so important. Okay, feeding pigs. It is really fun though. So what do pigs need? In the big gist of it, they need a balanced ration. So again, pigs aren't garbage cans, and lots of times people just like, oh, I'll feed them this. I'll feed them the cereal going bad in the house. Oh, I'll feed them this. Cereal's really high in sugar, bread's really high in sugar, and then you give these to pigs and they're not really getting a proper balanced ration. So they do need, kind of like, when you feed your dog, it's dog kibble, it's pre-balanced for the dog. We can do that for pigs as well. So I'm going to give a couple example diets. The first one is a complete feed, and a complete feed I compare to feeding, again, dog kibble to your dog. This is pre-balanced. If you're new into pigs, this would be the way I would go, because it's just done for you. All the minerals and balance is supplemented, and you don't have to wonder if you're deficient in something. You can find hog grower or hog rations at different feed stores. And if you're just starting up, I would say play it safe, go for a complete feed. The other one is doing a single or a custom grain for people who are feeding certain breeds. Like I know coonies, they tend to get fatter, so they might want to tailor their diet a little bit. And also some people might be, when they get a little more experienced with how they want their carcass to finish, they might tweak their ration a little bit so they can finish the carcass with either more or less fat. So that's getting into a little bit higher level. And honestly, outside of my knowledge, you'd have to probably talk to someone who has experience feeding pigs like that. And then the last one is doing a homemade, because I know that's not, that people do often feed, say, their garden waste going bad. So again, complete feed, really straightforward. Custom or single grains, if you're really curious about doing this, go on one of those Facebook groups and talk to someone who's doing this, and they will probably be way more helpful than I could possibly be. The other thing is there are nutritionists. If you call a feed mill, like a smaller local mill, you might be able to get a nutritionist who's happy to help you make a custom ration for a small scale. They do that at some places, not some of the huge mills, but some smaller mills will be supportive in making a custom for you. So homemade, this was in BC, and I'm looking in here, and this is really common. People, the meat's the non-negotiable, but if you've got some garden waste going bad, people might have a bit of bread left over. Yeah, like that's going to be, everything's a risk reduction, and how safe can we be doing that? If you're sure this is food that's not having exposure to meat, it's going to be safe. Again, is it going to be balanced? No. So I say with homemade and feeding, apples and the carrots going bad, whatever, I say use that as sort of a treat, and it's something you can supplement with. And it's not even that this is wrong. It's just, you're probably not going to get that balanced diet. And another one of the top things I get called about is something usually related to a metabolic issue. So again, the bladder stones, lame pigs because their bone development, maybe they're malnourished because they're low in some mineral or supplement. So I'd say use this as a supplement, as a treat, as a way when you're like, hey, I'm not wasting this food. But in terms of actually growing your pigs out appropriately, they need to have a more controlled diet. The one thing I forgot to mention about custom and single grains, if you don't do a complete feed, or if you are a little more of the homemade style, get a mineral supplement. At the very least, just get it's a powdered top dress that you can put on their feed. And at the very least, then you'll know that they're getting their minerals and vitamins, because that's usually where people who do a single grain or just a custom thing, they'll forget about that. And then we see mineral and nutritional deficiencies. Gonna go through this a little bit quicker because we're running out of time. I'm mindful of you guys probably being sick of hearing me talk. And this can really vary from breed to breed. So again, I would really think about your goals and then talk to people who have that breed on how they feed them. Generally speaking, if we go young to old, piglets need colostrum. Creep feed is the feed you can introduce to piglets who are still nursing the sow. This is nice for pigs to transition onto solid feed, but also if you are weaning pigs off the sow after 28 days, they need to have access to some kind of food so that the mom doesn't get too energy deficient from how much milk outlet she's got. So just making sure that we are getting pigs exposed. And really, this is a little bit of talk for commercial. In your guys' outdoor settings, pigs are naturally going to start chewing at feed, and the mom's going to naturally kick them off. Roughly, growing pigs eating 4% of their body weight a day. So 50 kilogram pigs eating about 2 kgs of feed a day. This is also for commercial breeds and large breeds. That's probably not true for a smaller breed pig. Again, this is all rough. Maintenance for a lactating mature animal not lactating, a pregnant mature animal, they're going to eat more like 1.5% of their body weight. And I can give you guys these sheets and these numbers, but I'm just giving you guys a rough idea. Piglets, for a lactating sow, let her eat. She's burning so many calories making milk. Just let her eat as much as she wants. And if you do have sows, this is not the ration to be cheap on. You don't want a lactating sow getting deficient. Definitely make sure she's got a complete feed, proper mineral supplements. Any questions about how much or what we're feeding pigs? I'll just open up the floor there. Because otherwise, how do you feed pigs? Just, make sure you've got clean troughs, and feeders that are hardy, that are bolted down, because they're going to rip them up for sure. Are eggs okay? Yeah, David, I see people feed eggs quite a bit, and apparently they love them as well. So yeah, eggs are okay. Again, this is the big thing that I just emphasize is just no meat. How do I make a copy of the webinar? Yep, someone asking for the webinar. We can share this for sure. Raw or cooked, I've seen both. Yeah, a lot of people are asking about eggs. I've seen people feed eggs quite a bit, and yeah, that's good protein source. Nothing wrong with eggs, cooked or raw, doesn't matter. And apparently pigs quite like them. Pigs also love bananas, really love bananas. Okay, so for feeders, again, depending how you're doing it, these are just a couple different feeder styles. I like these because they're self feeders. So you can basically put the feed, like this orange one on the side, put the feed on the top, and it's just constantly feeding, and you don't have to go in and scoop daily. These are a couple other ones I like. This was that same place I saw in BC. These tanks, they just kind of Jimmy rigged them up and turned them into feeder troughs. I thought they were a really cool idea. They had a place to dump feed in the back. Having these dishes out for pigs that are not as aggressive or not as destructive, those might work for Kuni. How about hay? Recommendations for where one can get those large round feeders. I think at penners or at shippers would be probably, shippers would be a good place to get those. Yeah, that's probably a good call. Hay, yeah, you can definitely feed hay. If anything, pigs they love just rooting through straw and hay. So yeah, if they've got hay there, that's definitely something. Pigs are pretty good. They can eat, honestly. I often say pigs can't eat everything. They shouldn't eat everything, but they can eat everything for sure. They really like clover. Yeah, so I mean, this chat's interesting. People are sharing some ideas, so feel free to share some thoughts on there. Okay, feed storage. This is another picture from my client and now friend. She does an excellent job. She's kind of went from having a couple pigs and she's expanded to now having sows. Her feed storage is great. We want to have feed clean, dry, off the ground, and low moisture. And I heavily emphasize that because moisture leads to mold and mold leads to sickness. Yeah, this was up on these pallets. Love that the feed's dry. It's not on the ground. It's in these big tote bags where rodents are unlikely to get in there. These work really well. This, really hard. Sweep it up. Honestly, this is just a rodent, and rodents are great at spreading disease. So if you do have a spilled feed, just keep it clean. It'll save you the rodent hassle. No one likes rodents. Couple things on feed safety. I'm not going to overly get into like sourcing feed overseas is more of a commercial swine thing, but feed is a very, very good vector to move virus and move bacteria. So that's probably not a problem for you guys when we're all purchasing local, but just something to be mindful of, that feed is a vector and can definitely move stuff. Does anyone know what this black stuff is? Very curious if anyone wants to comment on there. Ergot, nice one, Ben. Yes, ergot is a toxin that can develop in developing grain particles, especially when they're moldy. Ergot has in feed mills, there's so when they grade grain, So how like human grain food would never have ergot in it. And then there's an acceptable level of ergot that can be fed without causing problems. But it's definitely not a great thing to feed because it can cause an array of issues. So my comment here on food safety is, if you see a lot of this in your grain, a lot of the black, caution, caution, and don't feed moldy feed. I had a guy call me last year and his pigs got really sick. And I was asking a bunch of questions, And I just said, hey, is there any chance you fed them some old, like some wet or moldy feed? He's like, yeah, actually I did. They got super sick. So don't feed moldy feed, just throw it out. It's not worth it. And more importantly, don't let your feed get moldy because feed is crazy expensive this year. Mycotoxins can cause lots of problems. They can cause gangrene, where it's that tail sloughing, vomiting. And my biggest take home point would probably be if multiple pigs are not eating. If one pig's not eating, probably a sick pig. If multiple pigs aren't eating, probably bad feed. I've actually never seen pigweed, but I have to bring it up because there are some weeds that are poisonous to pigs. Probably good to ask someone in the Saskatchewan area if that's something. I don't know what's out there. Let's see. Yes, there's another comment. Ben made a comment. Thank you. Ergot, definitely not something to feed. That's why I say pregnant sows and lactating sows, don't cheap out on your lactating or pregnant sows. That can cause pregnancy loss. That can cause a lot of problems. So I just think about your pregnant lactating animals. We go for the good stuff. If we have to be mindful, and I am aware that feed is so crazy expensive. If you had to buy some feed that has a little more ergot in it, I'd say, distribute that out to more hardier animal, your growing pigs. Definitely not young weaned pigs, definitely not sows. Okay, I am information overloading you guys. I'm so sorry. My message here, good food is healthy pigs. If you're feeding them properly, honestly, it's gonna just eliminate a lot of the stress and the risk of having secondary health problems, metabolic issues, poor immune system, just like us, right? So good food, healthy pigs. Couple other things on feeding pigs is just body condition scoring. So breeds can be quite different in terms of what is a normal and acceptable body weight. But what we don't want to see is really thin pigs. And I mean, I've never seen a situation where pigs were malnourished because owners weren't feeding them. I've never seen that. But if you are, feeding your pig and it's eating and it's skinny and something is just it's not growing and it's gaunt and you can see ribs, that pig might be sick, right? There might be parasites, there might be something chronically going on. So if you have animals that you're looking at hip bone, like these are pigs. If you're seeing, it's not a dairy cow. If you're seeing hip bones and ribs, that's not normal. That being said, there are some breeds like Manges that can have very thin body condition. That's just sort of their look, but for the most part, really bony pigs is maybe telling you something isn't right. Probably more often what I see is pigs getting loved to death. Certain breeds are really prone to obesity. So you might have to tailor your feeding regime if you're feeding a really high energy grain. A lot of people are feeding corn this year, really high in energy. You might be more prone to having pigs get obese. Let's see what the chat says. I appreciate the interactions, you guys. Thank you. Just a quick heads up. Oh, that's Lynn reminding you about the poll. Sorry, guys, I'm running late. I'm trying to get through this. Okay, so some frequently asked questions. I'm just going to roll through this real quick and then we're just about done, you guys. Can I feed groceries that are going bad? It is okay to feed things like, vegetables, breads, but it's illegal to feed any meat whatsoever. And actually is illegal. It's not just a recommendation, that's a law. And again, I just remind people grabbing cereals and stuff and high sugar stuff, like, oh, I'll just feed it out to the pig. It's not like, if they're eating a whole box of cereal that's left over, that's a lot of sugar for them. So just being mindful of some of those things, see them as treats. Vegetables, those are great for pigs. Can I feed table scraps? No. If it's your dinner waste, just put in that's garbage now. So if it's, you're going for your groceries and you're sure what's safe, what hasn't touched meat, that's one thing. If this is dinner waste, just see it as garbage. Don't feed that. Can I feed garden veggies? Yes. Can I feed meat? No, I think you're getting me. I think I'm probably getting across and now I'm just annoying you guys, but no meat. Just about done, guys. How about germinated or fermented feed? Yeah, yep. And actually I have some people who feed distillers grains and they'll feed like the stillage from beer production. So yep, you can feed stuff like that for sure. Melanie, the hair loss, that could definitely be mites. We'll have a question period after. Water. Okay, so quick on water. Basically clean 24/7 access. And the big one, again, Saskatchewan is cold. Break up your ice. Make sure if you've got water troughs, they don't get frozen over. These are some different ways to have water access to pigs. You can have nipple drinkers. Those are really cool and I like them because it's you get a little bit less water waste when you have nipple drinkers. So that's a nice way to kind of control cost. You might have pond access, you might have troughs. Yeah, these are the nipple drinkers. It's just a little bevel. And when they play, they'll play with it because it's curious. And then they realize water comes out and they work really, really well. Again, the ice thing, just make sure we break that up for sure. Water quality. Basically, if you've got, maybe like a cattle pasture and manure runoff into the dugout that you're planning on serving to your pigs, you might be a little risky at having some coliform issues. Water quality is really important, often gets overlooked because people go, they're pigs, whatever, but good water is really important. If you're not sure, get your water tested. For example, in Alberta, we have really alkaline water, really basic water. So some people acidify it. Saskatchewan, you guys don't have that problem. But if you don't know, if you're thinking, maybe my water is really hard and mineral, and you can kind of tell if your water, if you have your coffee pot and ring of white around the pot, that could be really hard minerals. There's other things going on. So if you're not sure, oftentimes, I think actually the government will also pay for this test. I could be wrong about that, but I do think there is water testing that is covered for you guys. This is the very last section. And then you guys can ask me as many questions as you like, or if you're totally sick of hearing from me, I understand it's been a long session. So cleanliness and waste management. One section I didn't really talk too much about today is biosecurity, because I'm hoping some of it is built into these practices, talking about sourcing pigs, not feeding meat. We're going to go over some cleanliness, but we can maybe chat about that in the question period as well. So cleanliness, basically, if you've got, bedding in your shelters, or if you have an indoor access, just make sure we're scraping that out often. And have a spot for manure management. This client of mine, she had this really good setup in her farrowing barn. She would just scrape out the shavings and the crap and put it into here. And then she had a compost out back. It was great. Washing equipment. So in the commercial world, I've had to often revise how I talk about cleanliness, because in the commercial world, every time you're moving pigs through, it's like full-blown power washing and disinfecting and it's drying rooms. But I do recognize that that's not really a reality in this situation. So the biggest thing is removing all the gross material, like actual soiled straw, soiled bedding. But when I think about washing and disinfecting, though, like equipment you're using, so a feed pail or vaccine injector guns, boots that you're wearing around all the time. These are great things that we can, limit disease spread and limit bacterial growth. So yeah, scraping out soiled bedding. I did have one guy, as much as I say, the people like, I'm not going to power wash my barn. I did have one guy and he had quite a few pigs. Those ears went purple and they went septic with a streptococcal bacteria. He was really bothered by it. He said, what do I do? I'm like, honestly, you probably need to wash out your barn. And he did. And he actually did a whole power wash. He soaped it, disinfected it. He washed all the equipment. And now he's just kind of made it a biannual thing he does. So not a bad idea, especially, you know, maybe you don't need to do it right away, but especially if you have a strange health event happen, I would definitely recommend doing a wash. I put the word drying time in there because drying, like I always say, I look like a great vet in the summertime because it's hot and dry and a lot of bacteria and viruses get killed and everyone's like, yeah, my pig barn's doing amazing. And it's because the weather is very favorable. So drying hot sun works really well to kill stuff. You know, just thinking about equipment you use, feeders, scoops, med equipment, especially med equipment, because you're probably using it to treat a sick animal. We want to be cleaning that stuff. Again, nasty feed and troughs, scoop that stuff out, get rid of it. That's nasty. This straw over here, this is a what we call biofilm. So, you know, when your teeth feel fuzzy, that's biofilm. That's why, you know, mouthwash alone won't get rid of that. You actually need mechanical scrubbing. So for biofilm, loves filling up in water lines, filling up in feed troughs, things like that, needs to be scrubbed. Manure, again, probably a good idea to check out with your municipality as well what the legislation is with manure. Some people buy manure off farmers to say, I want it as fertilizer. You might compost it. You could do safe stockpiling, a couple different options for that. Yeah, again, compost, stockpile in the back. I was thinking, don't just be mindful of what you do with your manure, that you're not potentially contaminating downstream water sources for neighbors. That was a really random way to end. So here was all the things we talked about, and I apologize for how overloaded that was, but a lot of stuff to cover today. So that's a wrap. I am over time and I apologize for that. But I'm welcome to any questions unless people want to get out of here. Sorry about the extension.
Kelsey, thanks so much for all of the great information. Maybe if there's questions, we'll rapid fire them at you. A couple that came up in the chat that you may have missed, and maybe we need to leave it for a whole other webinar. I'm not sure, but mineral requirements.
Sure. My chat was quicker, Governor. Thank you. I did see one person ask me a specific question about hair loss. Yeah, some of that hair loss can be, it can definitely be from mites, and a really good, I'm not giving direct veterinary advice, but ivermectin is a really good dewormer to get certain internal worms, and it's really good at getting external parasites. So a round of ivermectin is very good for, especially coming into these spring seasons when there's more creatures alive. There was another one I saw too. Some pigs as well, certain breeds, coonies will sort of blow their coat out in the spring. They just sort of start having hair loss. I don't know if Herefords do that, but some breeds will do that. Yeah, mange definitely a possibility. So I would stick with it, even if ivermectin doesn't fix that particular problem, it's not going to hurt them, and it will probably help because most pigs at some point are carrying a parasite. Yeah, and I do prefer injectable or mouth deworming. Really depends on how comfortable you are giving an injection and how easy it is for you to bolus your pig in oral. There is option for oral. You could top dress that on feed. It's easy, but I don't really have too much of a preference, to be honest. If you're comfortable injecting's quick and certain. And yeah, I'm more than happy if there's interest in people having a more advanced session on kind of like, you know, doctoring my pigs 101. We can go through diseases. We can have preloaded questions and go over products and what's nice to have on site and how to take care of things. So if there's any interest, we can do something like that. I do know you guys have a hard time getting access to veterinarians, especially if you're quite rural. Looks like there's some interest in that. So sure, we can definitely look.
Absolutely, and certainly for everyone who's still with us, please let Sask Pork know. You can email us at info@saskpork.com for some feedback as well on some additional sessions you might like to see. Also sensitive to everyone's time. Kelsey, thank you so much. That was more time than you bargained for. And thank you to
Well, no, I'm
everyone
so
for
sorry.
attending today's webinar.
Thank you. I'm sorry to go long. I was like, how am I gonna come
Not
up
at
with
all. You know
favorite
what?
topics?
Based on the chat, we had a really active group. So thank you so much for
Yeah,
joining
and
us. And
yeah,
again,
thank you guys for your engagement. It makes it a lot more interesting for me when I get some feedback. So really appreciate it. And if there's any feedback for improvements on another session in the future, happy to hear it. We're trying to get better.
perfect. Everyone, you can keep the chat going here for a few more minutes. In the meantime, thank you again, everyone, for joining us, and have a great afternoon.
Yes, absolutely. And there's a couple things I did say I could share with you guys, and Mark knows sometimes I have to be chased down. I'm quite, I'm on the road a lot, so I'm sometimes like, oh, I'll get to that later. But if we do want to get a list of maybe a medical kit, and I've got demonstration on using a pig board and hoof trimming, we can get some of those things out to you guys as well.
Okay, perfect. It seems like the chat has died down, so we'll end today's session. And
Sure.
thanks again to everyone for joining us.
Thank you for coming. I appreciate it.